Welcome back. Mark Simmons joins us, and if you've ever bought a house, refinanced a house, well, you've probably had some questions about who determined how much it was worth. And the guy who may have done it is here now.
That would be me. That's right.
Hey, Mark.
For better or worse.
That's
hey,
right.
Ben,
Well,
how are you?
Hey, you're good. I mean, you've been in the business a long time, and certainly it's good to see you.
I've been in the business a long time. My kids are a lot older than yours. I've been around a lot longer than you have, I guess. But, it's fun being a dad.
It is.
You're gonna dig it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited, and Mark, I've known you a long time, since we were actually allowed to talk to appraisers about loans
Back in the old
and
days.
about houses. Now, certainly we won't be discussing anything on particulars. We'll be getting phone calls from the DFI.
Indeed.
Mark, so generally speaking, people are always questioning, well, how'd they get this value? Why is my house worth this according to this Mark Simmons character? So Mark, this is your moment.
It's a big mystery. We like to keep it as mysterious as possible, man. Well, really the process begins by trying to define the subject, and that's why I need to come by and have a look at your house, come inside and look at the floor plan and essentially give it a grade in terms of condition and quality, and I'll measure around the outside and get a square foot count. That gives me a good idea of what I'm looking at in terms of the subject. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not going to check the electrical system and the plumbing and go up in the attic necessarily and look in all the corners. I'm just there to satisfy the lender that the house is worth what they're lending on it.
And that's a big difference in I think, or a misconception, is a lot of people think, oh, well, he's going to appraise it, and that's going to have something to do with, the guts almost, the condition. And it may have something to do with the condition, but not really what's behind the walls. Is that right?
That's your home inspector's job, is to really go through it, the areas that we don't delve into. Condition does have an impact on value. If a house has deferred maintenance and isn't as nice as some of the others in the neighborhood, it's going to adjust lower. That seems pretty obvious. So condition does play a part along with quality and size, but no, I'm not going to be digging under the floorboards.
Not your thing.
Right.
So then once you go out and you've seen a home, you've measured it, you've looked at the yard, you see if it has an updated kitchen or bathroom. What are kind of those next steps to determining a price or a value?
The next thing I'm going to do is look at all of the sales, the recent sales in the neighborhood, and any more. The lenders like us to have data that only goes back about 3 months, maybe 6 at the outside, because in a volatile market, the lenders want the most recent data available that they can get. So we're looking for anything that might compare to the subject within a mile or so, hopefully, maybe less, that is sold within the last 3 months. And then we'll compare that to what we found at the subject and adjust for differences.
What do you mean adjust for differences?
Well, okay. A simple example would be one house has a 1-car garage, another has a 2. We'll adjust per garage bay for that. We'll adjust for square foot differences. Bedroom count, bath count. We're trying to match everything as closely as we can, but when it doesn't match exactly, we need to adjust one way or the other.
And I mean, it seems to make sense, though, right? I mean, you got a house and they're similar, but they're not exactly the same.
Rarely are they exactly the same. And those adjustments are derived through match paired sales analysis. What we try and do is find a couple of different houses that have sold within the same time period where really the only difference is the garage count. And that gives you the scientific basis to make that adjustment.
So it almost seems, I mean, it kind of makes sense here, right? I mean, you're looking at houses, and this one has a little bit different things, and this one might have a little bit nicer things. And so there's a little bit more make sense to it than just, drawing the number out of a hat.
Hopefully there is some science behind it, and people aren't just drawing a number out of a hat. Yeah. We don't, as appraisers, we don't set the market. We don't influence the market. Our job is to analyze the market. We get blamed sometimes for, affecting the market somehow. We're coming along behind it, and we're analyzing it afterwards, and then presenting that analysis to the lender just to say, yeah, all right, this is fair. This is a fair value. Go ahead and lend on it.
So there's a little bit of, almost like, some accountants, you're kind of looking in the rear view mirror and, seeing what's gone on.
Yes.
To come up with like a current number rather than, hey, this is kind of what it would sell for if you put it on the market today.
That's very true. And that's one of the flaws in the system, especially in fast changing markets. And we've just gone through that. Hopefully everybody out there has become aware of the way the market has changed. It's been a couple of years since we've seen stuff sell at or above list price, have multiple offers on homes, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because inventory dropped so low, that's what we're seeing again. And when you're looking at data that's 3-6 months old, sometimes you can fall into that trap. If you're good at what you do, though, you should really have your finger on the pulse and try and deal with stuff as currently as possible.
So how current, is it the neighbor next door? I guess you get all the data from everything that's going on.
We do, and we look at actually active listings and pending information. So not just what has sold, but what's out there that competes with the subject, too. That goes into our analysis and will help us explain to the bank why something might be selling for more than list price. If the competition, if your buyer doesn't get this house that they want, and the competition out there is all for much, much more, it explains why they're willing to pay a little bit more for the one that they've just offered on, if that makes sense.
So how do you, if you're looking at the competition or other houses, and right now we've talked at length on this show about just how there's not a lot of houses out there. There's not a lot of inventory. How do you manage to give a value on a house if there's not a lot of houses that are sold in the area?
We run into that a lot out in less dense areas and out in the suburbs. If you've got a subject that's on 10 acres and there haven't been any sales, you've got to start expanding parameters. And now you're looking back. Maybe you're going back a year for good comparable data, or you're going about 3 miles away. So you start as close and as soon as you can, and if there's nothing there, then you just kind of expand. But then you have to adjust. You have to adjust for time differences between the markets from when the comparable was found, and so it becomes a little more tricky.
We're here with Mark Simmons, co-owner of Pacific Heritage Appraisal. Mark, we do have to go to break here in just a minute, but so when people tend to think that their house is, maybe worth more, maybe.
I don't think I've
never heard that, right?
That's right.
And they think that their house is the only one that didn't go down in the entire downturn in the market.
Indeed.
I guess, what's the easiest thing, or what's something you could tell people about, hey, maybe your house is, it's kind of like, I guess you once told me it's not necessarily what you can sell it for, but it's what we can appraise it for.
What is there proof to support that contract price? Because the contract price is a very important piece of data, but it isn't the end all and be all.
And what about on, say, a refinance, if somebody's just refinancing their house?
That's a real difficult area to tread in, because people are emotional about their homes. Everybody believes that their house is a little nicer than the neighbors. And we're looking at it much more clinically. We're lumping everything together in the neighborhood, and we may not quite agree with you, but we try and be as nice about it as possible.
Well, Heather said before, at the last break, she bought a couch, and let me guess, furniture doesn't matter. So no matter how good of a decorator you are.
If I had a nickel for every time someone said, "Oh, my house is a mess," please excuse them. We don't care about the furniture. We don't care if there's dishes in the sink.
What about hoarders?
Wow. That's a different story.
You don't have to answer
That's
that.
A different story.
Mark, thanks so much for joining us again. Mark Simmons, co-owner of Pacific Heritage Appraisal. Oh, man, I tell you, a lot of people want to buy a house. They want to get a good deal. But where do you turn for the right information if you've never done it before? Jesse Paulson's going to join us, broker with RE/MAX Real Estate, when we come back.